Hey everyone, Miles with Hamilton Dog Training, and in this video, I'm going to show you how we stop any dog from pulling on the leash in just 15 minutes. We'll show you how to go from this, a dog who pulls you on the leash, ignores you, you dread taking them out on walks, to this, a dog who walks on a nice loose leash, they're checking in with you, and you actually start looking forward to walking your dog again. We've implemented this exact loose leash walking system on over 350 dogs with a 100% success rate. So if you watch this entire video, you'll be able to replicate these same steps with your dog at home. And the best part is, it only takes 15 minutes to train. So let's get started. So here are the supplies you'll need to train this. The first thing you'll need is a 6-foot leash made of nylon or biothane. No flexi leashes, no bungee leashes. The leash didn't have any give or flex to it. Just a simple 6-foot leash made of nylon or biothane. The next thing you'll need is some treats that your dog loves. You can use boiled chicken, string cheese, hot dogs, just something that your dog likes. The next thing you'll need is a Herm Springer prong collar or a Herm Springer slip collar. But for the vast majority of dogs, I recommend using the Herm Springer prong collar. And the last things you'll need is a positive attitude and an open mind. I can hear the comments already. Oh, Miles, I don't want to use the prong collar. I don't want to use food in the training. Listen. Nothing changes if nothing changes. You can't keep doing what you've always been doing and expect to get a different outcome. If you want to change things, you have to change. The first step is loading your reward marker. We use Chirp. Every time the dog hears Chirp, they know they're getting a food reward. Now, why is this useful? Well, the reward marker allows us to reinforce behaviors that we like. To reinforce a behavior just means you make it more likely the dog will repeat that behavior in the future. Your dog does something you like, you mark that behavior with Chirp. That takes a snapshot of that behavior, and then you produce a food reward. So as a result, your dog is now more likely to repeat that behavior because you've reinforced it. Having a clear reward marker with your dog will improve your communication tremendously. To start doing this, just start in a low distraction environment like your living room. Just have the dog in front of you and chirp, reward, chirp, reward, chirp, reward. And you'll know you're ready to move on once you and your dog looks up at you for a treat. All right, guys, so here's an example with Corsair. I am loading the chirp marker using obedience commands that she already knows. I'm asking her to sit. Right when she sits, I mark that behavior with chirp, and then I give her that food reward. She's gonna learn very quickly that every time she hears chirp, food is coming.
Chirp. Yeah, good girl. Okay. Down. Chirp. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Sit. Chirp. Yeah. Nice one, girly. Nice one. Sit. Chirp. Good. Nice. All right. Looks good.
The next step is to condition your dog to the prong collar. The prong collar is a tool that gives us leverage. You're able to apply more pressure with less physical effort without the risk of injuring the dog. Unlike other tools like a flat collar, a slip lead, or a martingale collar, this tool is the most effective for this. Before you start using this on your dog, you're going to want to make sure you have the proper fit. So you're going to want to add or remove links as appropriate, and the prong collar should fit high on the dog's neck, above the throat, behind the ears. It should fit snug, not tight, but not loose. It shouldn't be hanging. It should fit snug, just like a watch. To condition the collar, you're going to start in a low distraction environment. You're going to make slight directional pressure on the leash. Just hold it there. And once the dog gives into the pressure, you mark with the chirp, release the pressure, and reward them with food. You know you're ready to move on once your dog understands how to turn off the pressure. You make the pressure, they give right into it, you reward them, they're ready to move on.
I'll just make sure the conditioning's good. Chirp. Yeah, good girl. Nice work.
I want you to notice how it's very slight directional pressure. I'm just making the pressure, I'm holding it, I'm not pulling her, I'm not yanking her, I'm just making slight pressure, then releasing, marking, rewarding once she gives into it.
Pressure. Chirp. Yeah, that's a good girl.
So now that you've loaded the chirp marker and you've conditioned the prong collar, it's time to begin phase 1 of the loose leash walking, which is the U-turn phase.
So I'm just gonna walk back and forth, just doing U-turns, and it's the dog's job to pay attention to me, okay? I'm not gonna pay attention to her, not gonna give her any cues. I'm gonna close my mouth, right? And if she catches the U-turn, good. If she doesn't, there's a consequence. She hits the end of the leash, okay? So it's up to her to pay attention. And what you should see as we go through this is you should see her mindset start to shift. You should see her start to check in with me more. and be less concerned with the things in the environment. Good. Chip. Good. Nice. Nice one. She gets paid for that because she was catching a lot of those U-turns, right? So we're establishing a system of consequences. If you don't pay attention to me, bad things happen. If you do pay attention to me, good things happen. So I'm just going to continue doing this until she catches pretty much every one. If she keeps hitting the end, I'll up the pressure. Good. Nice. Good girl. Good. All right, so now she's starting to catch it.
All right, guys, now that you've completed the U-turn phase and your dog is catching every single U-turn, it's time to move on to phase 2, which is the sporadic walking phase.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to change my pace and my direction sort of abruptly. And if she doesn't pay attention, she's going to hit the end of the leash. Like right there, right? Wow, okay, okay, that was pretty good. Nice one, nice one. Good, okay. So this is just building engagement, becoming something that she can't ignore, she can't afford to ignore, right? Good, and you see how she's offering me engagement, right? I don't have to ask for it, I'm not telling her to do anything. She's like, oh, what the heck is this guy doing? Why are we walking like this? But when she pays attention, good. Yeah. Good. Nice work. Nice work. When you pay attention to me, good things happen.
So now that you've completed the sporadic walking, your dog is staying with you, they're paying attention to you, they're offering that engagement. Now it's time to begin phase 3 of the loose leash walking, which is where we punish the pulling. This is the most important phase in the loose leash walking. People have all these weird workarounds for teaching the loose leash walking. They're walking, they're stopping, they're walking, they're stopping, they're treating the dog every 5 seconds. And what you have to understand, guys, is if your dog pulls on the leash, it's reinforcing. So in order to stop the behavior of leash pulling, we must punish the behavior of pulling. And as long as you punish the behavior, you'll see a reduction in the behavior. So let's get started with phase 3 of the loose leash walking.
So basically, what we're gonna do for this is when she feels pressure on the leash, I expect her to give into the pressure immediately, right? So she feels pressure, she gives into it. If she feels pressure like this, good, she gives into it. Very good. I should be able to move her around with just the leash pinched between my 2 fingers, just like this. If I can't do that, she's pulling. So if she feels the pressure and decides to brace into it, right? She decides to ignore the pressure, I'm going to create slack in the leash and then a quick pop. Pull, pop. Pull, pop, okay? So now what she's going to learn is whenever she feels that tension, she's got to ease off it. Tension, ease off. Tension, ease off. And then when she doesn't pull, if she offers other behaviors, if she catches my turns, if she catches my stops, if she checks in with me, I'm gonna be rewarding all those behaviors as well. Okay, but there's no commands for this, all nonverbal. Okay, so she has a lot of freedom, right? She pulls, right there, little correction. And I'm gonna start off light in the pressure because I don't know exactly where her sensitivity level's at, right? So she has a lot of freedom. I'm fine if she sniffs and smells around, that's all good with me. As long as she doesn't, if I make pressure, see how she's ignoring it? Right there, correction. You can't ignore the pressure because the leash is you. This is your primary means of communication between you and her. So if she's pulling on the leash, you don't have anything, right? You're not even in her head. All right, so she's allowed to sniff. That's all good. I'm cool with that. She's allowed to sniff, check things out. But if she feels pressure, she must give into it. Good girl, right? That's good. So I need her to be very supple on the leash and in tune with me. The 2 most common situations the dog will pull is to get to something, like a smell or a person or a dog, or to stay on something, like a smell, right? Like what she did back there. She wanted to stay on that smell. So always be aware of those. So if she's smelling, that's totally cool with me. I want the dog to smell it on the walk. But if she feels pressure, see how she's ignoring it? Correction. Can't ignore the pressure.
Keep in mind, guys, that the level of pressure you use in these corrections will be greatly dependent on the dog you have in front of you. Your dog might be way more sensitive than this, or they might be way more physically resilient. It all depends. And one of the skills you'll have to develop as a dog handler is learning how to read the dog you have in front of you. I usually recommend starting lower on the pressure and then quickly working your way up as necessary.
If she's ahead, that's okay. But if she feels pressure, she must slow down. Good. Good girl. Very good. And if I stop, good. Good girl. Right? Good. And if I walk, and she smells, that's all good.
If you have a dog who really likes to pull forward on the walk, they really like to be ahead, they really like to ride the end of that leash, here's what I like doing for dogs like that.
Good. Yeah, go that way. Good. You see that? How she just kind of feels it and then immediately backs off? Good. Now, if there was something really exciting up there, like maybe her brother was walking ahead of her, right? She wants to get to him. Then what I'll do sometimes is I'll walk fast, right, towards the thing she wants to get to, and then I'll hit the brakes, right? And then correction there, right? And I'll just keep walking. And then I'll do it again. I'll just walk fast and then stop. Chirp. Wow, good girl. Very nice. Right, then pair. So there's a balance here, right? There's a clear incentive structure, right? Paying attention to other things that aren't me is probably not going to be too good for you. But if you pay attention to me, good things happen.
So that's phase 3 of the loose leash walking. The most important thing here is that you're actually punishing the pulling. Remember, if you punish a behavior properly, you will see a reduction in the frequency of that behavior. So if your dog keeps pulling again and again and again, it doesn't matter what you think you're doing, you're not punishing the behavior. Once you've taught the loose leash walking, we remain on phase 3 indefinitely. From this day forward, loose leash walking is an expectation. Every time that leash is on, we expect the dog not to pull. 0 exceptions. They are never allowed to pull you on that leash ever. Dogs are kings of context. When you train this for the first time, your dog is going to learn that on this day, at this park, at this time, they were not allowed to pull on the leash. If you want your dog to know that the loose leash walking applies everywhere, you must generalize the training. You must take them to many different places and many different environments, progressively up the distraction levels, and teach your dog that the same rules still apply. Just because you train something one time doesn't mean your dog will just magically continue doing it for the rest of their life. Training is something that must be maintained, and if it's not maintained, it will degrade over time. When you train the loose leash walking, you start to change the mindset of the dog and you open up the doors for more training to come. If you want to continue the momentum, check out our online training program where we help everyday dog owners take their dogs from completely untrained to 100% off-leash trained in as little as 8 weeks. If you want a strong relationship with your dog, a dog you can take anywhere, do anything with, you have 100% off-leash control, check out our training program. It's the first link in the description. Now let's cover the 4 most common mistakes people make with the loose leash walking. The first and by far the most common is nagging the dog and not actually punishing the pulling. So many people get to phase 3 of our loose leash walking system, and instead of punishing the pulling, they half-ass the corrections. And those little baby half-ass taps on the leash aren't going to change anything. If you punish a behavior properly, you will see a reduction in the behavior. So if you go out and you're walking your dog and you have to give them 100 little corrections on the leash, you are not punishing anything. What you're doing is you're desensitizing the dog to the pressure. They're becoming more physically resilient to the pressure, and by the time you want to fix the leash pulling, you're going to have to use more pressure, and it's a really bad cycle. One good correction is worth 100 small corrections. Actually punish the pulling. The second mistake I see people make is being inconsistent with everything, being inconsistent with their rewards, inconsistent with their corrections, inconsistent with their tools, inconsistent with everything all around. Inconsistency creates a lack of clarity for the dog, and they're going to take way longer to pick this up than they otherwise would have if you were consistent with everything. So be as consistent as possible. The third mistake I see people make is just improper technique, improper leash handling skills. And if you have this problem, you need to watch our How to Properly Use the Leash video where we cover how to use the leash, how to hold the leash, and how to use it to properly correct your dog. And the fourth and final mistake is too much talking. So many people are always in the habit of talking to the dog, always giving commands, always saying their name, always giving these cues. Stop the talking. Loose leash walking is a non-verbal exercise. It's not a command. You don't have to tell your dog to do stuff all the time. Just let them walk. Non-verbal. Focus on what you're doing with the leash. So that's it for this video. Comment below if this video helps you out and share it with a friend because it might help them out too.